Okay, that means we can just carry on. So let us, in that case, let us carry on and see the adventures of Suba and see what he has to say here. Maybe that's a nice translation for these suttas, the adventures of so-and-so. Suba's adventures with the Buddha or something like that. Sounds kind of exciting. Anyway, so this is what happens next. So now Suba says to the Buddha, "Worthy Gautama." This is like Bo Gautama. Bo is like the Brahmanical way of saying, like venerable or whatever. Bo. Worthy Gautama. The Brahmins prescribe 5 things for making merit and succeeding in the skillful. 5 things for making merit and succeeding in the skillful. So these are kind of the Brahmanical teachings. How did the Brahmins live their life? So this is kind of interesting. Now we get a kind of comparison between the Brahmanical way of doing things and the Buddhist way of doing things, and we can see how these how they measure up to each other. If you don't mind, please explain these in this assembly, says the Buddha. It is no trouble when good fellows such as yourself are sitting here. It's a bit strange, the translation here, good fellows. I'm not sure if that's the right way to speak to the Buddha. It sounds a bit casual to me, but the Pali is actually much more respectful than it seems here. So this is Bhante Sujato's translation. I may complain to him when I see him in the future. So we'll see what happens. Well, speak then, student. So now comes these 5 things. Worthy Gautama, truth is the first thing. Fervor is the second thing. Celibacy is the third thing. Recitation is the fourth thing. Generosity is the fifth thing. These are the 5 things that are the Brahmins prescribe for making merit and succeeding in the skillful. What do you say about this? So this is this list is kind of interesting, and you may wonder what this list is about. It looks kind of random from the Buddhist point of view, but you obviously recognize many of these things, and these things are, of course, important in Buddhism as well. Truth here is satcha. And satcha here is not just the idea of speaking truthfully, but it seems to be truth in a larger sense. The idea of like the 4 noble truths are like the Chattaro Arya Satcha, Satcha, the same kind of word. And so it seems that maybe what this is referring to is kind of being honest, understanding the world in the right way, having right view, perceiving things in the right way. It obviously also means speaking the truth, but it seems to have this kind of broader idea. And from a Buddhist point of view, obviously it is very important. This is the foundation of the Dhamma, is to arrive at truth. This is the beginning of the path with right view, and it is the ending of the path with insight into the nature of reality. The whole thing in between is about approaching truth in one way or another. So truth is foundational, and without truth, we are misguided. Without truth, we are blind. Without truth, we're heading in the wrong direction. Without truth, we will never be happy. You have to be based on truth to be able to practice in a way that leads to peace, that leads to freedom. This is about freedom, to lead to freedom and liberation. All of these things can only be had if you are basing things on truth. So truth is absolutely fundamental. You have to know what things are like to be able to take good decisions, to be able to make the right choices, to have the right aim, the right purpose, the right goal, the right heading in the right direction. If you don't understand the nature of things, there's no way you'll be able to live in the right way. So truth is a very important idea, and it's also very important in our society in the present day. Science is meant to be a discovery of truth. That's the whole point of science. Going to school, learning about the world is ideally also finding out truth. That's kind of the ideal anyway. Sometimes you don't know, but that's kind of the ideal. So truth is very important. So here there's a very close correspondence between the Buddhist way of thinking and the Brahmanical way of thinking. Of course, what you take to be truth is going to be different, and that is the problem. The underlying issue is that we don't always agree on truth. Some truths may not actually be true. Yeah, it turns out to be wrong because you hold on to something which actually is wrong. So when we inquire, we have to have this very sense of radical inquiry, never taking anything for granted, never accepting things simply because our ancestors told it is true. Okay, go and bow to the Buddha. Yeah, yes, mommy, yes, daddy, and you bow to the Buddha, and you do that for the rest of your life without really inquiring what Buddhism is about. Yeah, you can see how that can happen very easily. Or bow down to money. Yeah, bow down to money. Yes, yes, mother. Okay, so then you keep on working really hard and bowing down to money for the rest of your life, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. And so this is often the problem. Truth is misunderstood. The second one here, fervor, is an unusual word. But fervor here means like applying yourself with a certain intensity, something like that. And the Pali word here is tapas. And tapas usually means the idea of being ascetic, asceticism. And there are some nice suttas where the people, they kind of blame the Buddha for being tapassi, one who is an ascetic, not as ascetic, but like tormenting yourself. Yeah, it's kind of a profound asceticism that leads in the wrong way, where it's self-torment and self-torture and these kind of things. And then the Buddha replies to him that, am I a tapassi? Well, in a certain way I am, in another way I'm not. And this is where you can learn these words from a Buddhist kind of perspective. And the Buddha and the Buddhists are not tapassi in the sense of tormenting ourselves in terms of standing on one leg for 10 years or sitting on the hot rocks and this kind of thing that the Jains would do. We're not Jain ascetics. But the Buddha is a tapassi in the sense that he burns away the defilements of the mind. Tapas is a burning. The sun is a tapas because it burns. In the same way, you burn away the defilements. So any ascetic practice that you do that gets rid of the defilements, that is tapas in the Buddhist system. So again, you ask yourself, does it lead to good qualities and away from bad qualities? Then it is the right kind of tapas. It is not just about, torturing yourself for the sake of torturing yourself, and then hopefully it will give some good results in your next life or whatever. That's not really what it is about. It's about right here and now, what it does to you. Celibacy means non-sexuality. Yeah, that's really what it means. Non-sexuality is a better translation than celibacy. It means abstaining from any kind of sexuality. So this is the Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, Brahma is the kind of supreme god of the Indian Vedic system. And so of course this is one of the reasons why this word is very powerful in ancient India. This is not just a word that is used by the Buddhists, the Brahmacharya, but the whole idea of Brahma is a pre-existing word and it had a meaning for everyone. And so for the ancient Indians, the Brahma were the highest kind of gods. And in Buddhism, it is when you go beyond gender. Yeah, when you go beyond gender, these are the gods that don't have any gender anymore. They are kind of neutral. And of course, if there is no gender, there's also no sexuality. You go beyond sexuality and you achieve a higher kind of happiness. So the Brahmacharya, charya is conduct, is the conduct of the Brahma gods. That's kind of what it really means, the Brahmacharya. And because it is the conduct of the Brahma gods, it then becomes the non-sexuality, yeah? So it is going beyond sexuality. And this is very important in Buddhism. And the reason why it is so important is because that is where deep meditation becomes possible. The Brahmacharya symbolizes the whole idea of going beyond the five sense world. It is the core aspect of going beyond the five sense world. So celibacy here, or non-sexuality, symbolizes the idea of profound meditation. If you want to take meditation all the way to the deepest level, well then non-sexuality is necessary. And this is kind of why it is important both in the Brahmanical religion when they were trying to deepen their meditation, and of course also in Buddhism because we are trying to deepen the same kind of meditation. So these are very interesting ideas, and you can see there's a lot of overlap here between Buddhism and the Vedic religions. Recitation is the fourth one, and in Buddhism, recitation is often called learning. Sutta means hearing, so you hear first and you recite afterwards. And recitation and hearing is a kind of a contemplation of the scriptures, contemplation of the word of the Buddha. You keep on reciting it. In a way, that's what we are doing now. We're kind of reciting it. We have it on print, or we have it on pixels on the screen, so we don't have to worry too much about recitation anymore. But it's the same kind of idea as a contemplation and reflection on these teachings. You recite it, you learn the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta by heart, and then you walk back and forth and you think about the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. The Evang me sutang ekang samayang bhagava bharanasiyang viharati isipatane megadaye tatrako bhagava panchavagiye bhikkhu amantesi. That's the beginning of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. The reason I know is because we chant it every year at the Bodhinana Monastery in the rainy season. That's kind of why. And it's not because it's just because that's what we do. And it's kind of nice to chant these things. You chant it in Pali. If you know Pali, then it has a lot of meaning as you chant the Pali. So recitation is very important. That's what allows you to gain a deeper insight, a deeper understanding of these teachings. It takes a long time for these teachings to sink in. You may think you understand. And understanding, yes, maybe you do understand in a certain way, but for it really to penetrate in a deep way, so that it really appreciates what it goes on, so it becomes a motivating factor on your path. It really has to sink in. It has to become like your view of the world. You take on the view of the suttas, and when you take on the view of the sutta, then it has a very powerful effect on you, because it starts to direct your life. So right view leading to right intention. These are the first two factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. You can see it going together there. And then we have the last one of these. Generosity is the fifth. Generosity being this foundational practice of Buddhism as well. We saw that yesterday with the idea of the gradual path, always starting with generosity. It's a very, very important part of Buddhism. Please don't underestimate this factor of generosity. It is something that we should do all the time if we can. But I will probably come back to generosity later on, so I'll leave it for now. And most of us understand this, at least partly already. So what does the Buddha have to say about this? He then asks. And the answer is as follows. This is what the Buddha has to say here. Well, student, is there even a single one of the Brahmins who say this? I declare the result of these 5 things after realizing it with my own insight. They were very direct. There was kind of they're just asking. They obviously have a good relationship, and they ask each other a very direct question. Do you guys really understand what you're talking about? That's what he's saying, that's kind of what he's saying. It's almost kind of very direct. Does any one of you really, have you got really any insight into this? Where does it come from? Why do you mention these 5 things anyway? What's going on here? Obviously the Buddha says it in a nice way, but it is kind of direct. And in a way, it's beautiful that it can be like that. Because when you have a discussion, if you are direct, it is much more easy to have a discussion based on truth. If we have to kind of couch everything in nice language, not to hurt other person's feelings or whatever, sometimes it's hard to get the real answer, because it's just all kind of misunderstandings, that kind of thing. But if we are direct, if you feel that there is trust and you can be direct, it's a good thing. And so please feel free to be direct with me as well. If you think I'm talking nonsense, you can say, Venerable, or whatever you want to call me, this is not true, you're talking rubbish here, so let's kind of get this sorted out, And I was like, oh, really? Okay, maybe let's have a look at this, So please don't hurt my feelings too much. I'm a very sensitive person, so be kind to me. Okay, so anyway, so this is the Buddha's question. So what does he say? So I'm going to have a sip of coffee before I get into this. It's getting exciting. So this is what he says. No, Master Gautama, no, worthy Gautama. Yeah, we don't have any insight into these things. Okay, well then why are you saying it? Yeah, if you don't have any insight. Well, is there even a single tutor of the Brahmins, or a tutor's tutor, or anyone back to the 7th generation of tutors who says this? I declare the result of these things after realizing it with my own insight. It's usually 7 generation is usually the standard kind of thing in the suttas. So you go back 7 generations of teachers. So I don't know how they did that. They would have very good memories and knowing exactly. I know Ajahn Brahm is my teacher. His teacher was Ajahn Shah. His teacher was kind of Ajahn Man. His teacher may be a monk called Ajahn Sao, but it's a little bit unclear. That's 4 generations. I'm at a loss beyond that. I have no idea beyond that. Some random teacher. I know Buddha is back there somewhere. That's a long way back. Yeah. So they had a very kind of clarity about their lineages in those days. No, Master Gautama. Yeah, none of these tutors had this kind of insight. These 5 qualities have such and such a result. It's very honest, isn't it? You are very honest about things. And if you are going to have a good discussion, you have to be honest. If your ego gets in the way and your ego says, actually, it is too painful for me to admit this, then the discussion is going to stop. You cannot really learn anything. You are blocked. Your ego blocks your ability from really learning. So it's so important to get the ego out of the way. So when you are asked questions, try to ask as openly as you possibly can. When you inquire into the Dhamma, inquire as openly as you can. Don't have blockages that stop you from really listening. Don't hold on to too many things. There are things that you will hold on to. It's impossible not to hold on to anything. You will. It's impossible to avoid that entirely. But try to not have too many things, because then inquire into truth becomes very difficult. So this is like an exemplary kind of conversation that they're having here. A lot of openness. No, worthy Gautama. Well, what of the ancient seers of the Brahmins, namely Attaka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vesamitta, Yamadaggi, Angirasa, Bharadvaja, Vasetta, Kassapa, and Bhagu? This is like a standard set of ancient Brahmanical seers. They were the authors, the propagators of the hymns. Their hymnal was sung and propagated and compiled in ancient times. So these are probably the people who are supposed to have written the Vedas, like the Rig Veda and these kind of things. And these days Brahmins continue to sing and chant it, chanting what was chanted and teaching what was taught. Did even they say, we declare the result of these 5 things after realizing it with their own insight? This is kind of scary for this Brahmin student, right? The whole Brahmanical teaching is being challenged here in a very deep way. If even the most ancient of the teachers didn't have a clue, then what on earth are you talking about? This is kind of what is at stake here. No, Master Gautama. They too didn't know the result of these 5 things. So, student, it seems that there is not a single one of the Brahmins, not even anyone back to the 7th generation of tutors, not even the ancient seers of the Brahmins who say, we declare the result of these 5 things after realizing it with our own insight. Suppose there was a queue of blind men, each holding on to the one in front. The first one does not see, the middle one doesn't see, and the last one doesn't see. In the same way, it seems to me that the Brahmin statements turns out to be comparable to a queue of blind men. The first one does not see, the middle one does not see, and the last one does not see. This is how the world often is. Yeah, it's a queue of blind people. We're all kind of queuing up, and we are all kind of holding on to the one in front, hoping that they understand, without really asking ourselves, do they actually understand? This is such a common thing in the world. It's not, and it's. I think Buddhists also can be like that. Yeah, we are really not, and not necessarily any different. Sometimes we are different, sometimes not. It's a very easy thing to do, because it is easy to rely on someone else without questioning. Questioning is difficult usually, but just relying on something is often the easy way out. But it's also very dangerous. It may be easy, it may give you a feeling of security, but it's a very shallow kind of security. Once that security is challenged by the realities of the world, it may turn out to be wrong, and then we have a deep problem. And so, we should. So this is kind of the importance of inquiry, the importance of asking questions, the importance of going deeper. And this is why it matters things like, questions like the suttas. Well, where do the suttas really come from? Are they the word of the Buddha, or are they not? Are they just a file of blind men, a queue of blind men? Or is it actually someone seeing at the beginning? If it comes from the Buddha, well then it is someone who saw at the beginning. But if the suttas have been changed by blind people on the way, and what we have now has got nothing to do with the way it was, well then maybe we too are lining up in this queue of blind people. So this is why these inquiries actually matter. So, okay, the suttas, are they the word of the Buddha? Well, I think they are. I think there's good reasons for thinking they are. And so, having made that inquiry, okay, then you are kind of on good grounds. I think there are people in the present day who realize these teachings anyway. That's another reason why we have people who see. But these inquiries are important also on the Buddhist path, also in Buddhism. And without that, we are just holding on to something that is kind of nice and comfortable, but not necessarily true. So what is the Brahmin student going to say? I feel a bit sorry for this Brahmin student. Wow, Subha. Really a bit rough. Yeah, okay, so hopefully he's made of stern stuff, so he will be okay. Let's see what happens. When he said this, Subha became angry and upset with the Buddha. You can sort of see why he might be a bit upset, yeah? Because of the simile of the queue of blind men. He even attacked and badmouthed the Buddha himself, saying, the ascetic Gautama will be worsted. Worsted means like he will be overturned or something like that. He will be beaten in debate. Yeah, something like that I think is the meaning here. He said to the Buddha, worthy Gautama, the Brahmin Pokarasati Upamanya of the Subhaga forest says, this is exactly what happens when some ascetics and Brahmins. They claim to have a superhuman distinction. They claim to have knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. But their statement turns out to be a joke. Mere words, vacuous and hollow. For how on earth can a human being know or see or realize any superhuman quality and a distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones? That is not possible. Okay, so let's just backtrack a little bit here. Yeah, so he is now talking about a Brahmin called Pokarasati, and Pokarasati is found in a number of places in the suttas, a very famous Brahmin at that time, and he was a friend of Todeya, who was Subha's father. And he actually became a Buddhist later on. He seems that he may have been a stream mentor, and so he gets turned around. But at this point, he seems to be more anti-Buddhist. Yeah, how can they know anything at all? Those dodgy ascetics, yeah, with vacuous words, just a joke, the whole bunch of them. Let's kind of get to the real teaching of the Brahmins. So he seems to be like putting everyone down, basically, and dismissing the idea of those ascetics and Brahmins. So this is what he says, Subha. He quotes the Brahmins and how they are not impressed by the ascetics. But of course, we also know that Subha has just gone to the Buddha. So there's obviously some part of Subha which also respects the Buddha. Otherwise, he wouldn't go there. Yeah. So he's kind of teetering here. He's a bit upset now because the Buddha has had the simile of the queue of blind men. So he kind of reverting a bit back to his Brahmanical thing because he is upset. But we also know that actually he is really inquiring into truth. So I think what the Buddha is doing here, he's kind of skillfully driving him on. Yeah, okay, maybe you will get upset for a short while, but we will take it further and then we will see where it takes you. And this is kind of the skill of the Buddha in teaching somebody. And you will also, a lot of people, you will notice this when you hear the Dhamma and when you hear someone teach the Dhamma, sometimes what the teacher says will upset you. Yeah, have you seen that happening sometimes? How can the teacher say this? This is kind of really bad. And then you reflect, and maybe the teacher was right after all, yeah? But it's too much to take often in the beginning. It is too hard. It's just, I know sometimes I get a bit upset with Ajahn Brahm. Yeah, Ajahn Brahm says something. I think, what on earth are you talking about, Ajahn Brahm? Yeah, I don't usually reply. I just kind of walk out quickly. Yeah? Something like that. But this is kind of human nature, and that's okay as long as it allows us to grow rather than kind of to nurture that resentment in the heart for a long time. Short-term upset is okay if it leads to something more profound afterwards. So he is saying here it is not possible to achieve these superhuman qualities. This is the Uttari Manusa Dhamma, the distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones, the Alang Arya Nanadasana Visesa. I don't agree with Bhante Sudarta's translation here, that there should be two different things. There should be the superhuman quality and the distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. These are used separately in the suttas as two distinct things. If you put it into one, I think you are diminishing the importance of what is going on here. These are two ways of talking about something the higher kind of qualities achievable by human beings. Uttari Manusa Dhamma Alang Arya Jnanadasana Visesa. That is not possible. The Buddha replies, but student, does Pokadasati understand the minds of all these ascetics and Brahmins, having comprehended them with his own mind? That's a fair question. How does he know that they haven't realized anything? Yeah, is it just putting them down because he is kind of attached to his own Brahmanical views? Well, why is he saying this? Is he saying this because he has any good reason? What good reason might he have? Well, one of them would be comprehending the minds of others. So it seems unlikely that he would have done that. So what does the student answer? He says, worthy Gautama, Pokadasati doesn't even know the mind of his own bonded maid, Punika. So how could he know all those ascetics and Brahmins? Bonded maid is like a servant, yeah. His bonded servant Punika doesn't even know that mind. So how can he know the mind of the ascetics and Brahmins? So the idea here is that Punika is just an ordinary worker in his house or something like that. And surely you can understand the mind of the maid. Yeah, you just look at the maid. Oh, today the maid is a bit upset. Today the maid is happy. But ascetics and Brahmins might be more profound than just a maid, and so even more difficult to understand. Suppose there was a person blind from birth. He's now talking about Pokadasati. So the Buddha is really driving home this point of blindness. Yeah. People being blind. He was blind from birth. They couldn't see sights that are dark or bright, or blue, yellow, red, or magenta. They couldn't see even or uneven ground, or the stars, or the moon and the sun. They would say, there is no such thing as dark and bright sights, and no one who sees them. There is no such thing as blue, yellow, red, magenta, even or uneven ground, stars, moon, and sun, and no one who sees these things. I don't know and see it, therefore it doesn't exist. Would they be speaking rightly? So if you have been born blind and then you refuse to think that sight is possible, then maybe it's because you are, you are not being open to the possibility that there might be something more. No, worthy Gautama, there are such things as dark and bright sights, and one who sees them. There is yellow, blue, red, magenta, even and uneven ground, stars, moon, and sun, and the one who sees these things. So it's not right to say, I don't know it or see it, therefore it doesn't exist. So now the Buddha has already overturned the saying of Pokarasati. Just because Pokarasati doesn't know them doesn't mean that they don't exist. It's a very powerful argument. And you will know that this is a very common argument in the present day. Yeah, people will say, oh, yeah, there is no such thing as a ghost and devas because I don't see them. Surely I would see them, yeah, if they existed. Well, maybe it's not as simple as that. Yeah, or rebirth. Yeah, we don't see rebirth. Yeah, we don't remember our past lives, or everyone. There's no such thing because I don't see it. There can't be any rebirth. So you should be a secular Buddhist. Please don't be a secular Buddhist because it's not Buddhism. Yeah, Buddhism without rebirth is not really Buddhism. Anyway, that's kind of my view of the matter. So just because you can't see these things doesn't mean they don't exist. We are blind to many things in the world. And this is one of the reasons why we read the suttas. We listen to people who have good meditation, who have insight, people who have their act together. Someone like Ajahn Brahm, when he speaks with a certain authority. I was always drawn to Ajahn Brahm as a person because there's something about Ajahn Brahm to me that this is a person who understands. The very first time I heard him, I thought, wow, this is my teacher. I knew straight away, bang, off to Perth I was. So there is this, and that's wonderful, that there is something more in the world. If there is just what we see and what we hear, it makes life very small, very narrow, very uninteresting. But the fact that there are people in the world who understand and realize a greater reality, who understand that there is profound meditation, who understand that there is insight that is possible, that is way beyond the ordinary human insight. There's something very positive and beautiful about that lifts up your mind and makes your mind bright and gives you that confidence that life has a greater meaning beyond the ordinary things that we normally see around us. So there's a poverty in our life unless we have confidence in something higher, unless we see that the possibility of the Buddhist teachings, that there's something more. This gives a richness to life. It gives the hope that instead of ordinary humdrum, you get born, you go to school, bah, bah, then you go to university, bah, bah, sheep, 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 then you go to work, you get married, you have a car, you have a house, bah, you work really hard, you make up money, bah, you get a pensioner, bah, you go traveling around the world, bah, you die. Why? Why? What was the point? What was the purpose of all of these things? And this is the following, just going along. There is no higher purpose in life. It makes life kind of empty, without meaning, without purpose. And so these are the kind of things, the poverty sometimes of life, unless we have the larger sight, the larger understanding of things. And so now, obviously, Subha, he is probably starting to understand that the Buddha is onto something. And of course, when you are in the presence of the Buddha, when the Buddha says these things because of the power of his personality, the power of his qualities, the fact that the spirituality kind of exudes, comes out of the Buddha, it's like you are in this force field. Anyone who has a certain presence to them, they have like a force field around them. You feel that there's something there which actually is different from ordinary people. You can imagine being there with the Buddha. It's very easy to believe that there must be some deeper insight. In the same way, the Buddha says, Pokarasati is blind and sightless. It is quite impossible for him to know and see or realize a superhuman quality, a distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. What do you think, students? There are well-to-do Brahmins of Kosala, such as the Brahmins Chanki, Tarukka, Pokarasati, Janusoni, and your father Todeya. What is better for them? That their speech agrees or disagrees with the consensus of opinion. So, okay, let's just go through these criteria. So these are the famous Brahmins of that time. And he replies that it agrees with the Gautama. What's better for them? That their speech is thoughtful or thoughtless. That it's thoughtful. What is better for them? That their speech follows reflection or is unreflective. That it follows reflection. What is better for them? That their speech is beneficial or worthless. That is beneficial. What do you think, student? If this is so, does Pokarasati's speech agree or disagree with the consensus of opinion? It disagrees with the Gautama. Is it thoughtful or thoughtless? It is thoughtless. It is reflective or unreflective? It is unreflective. It is beneficial or worthless? It is worthless. So this is a way kind of for the Buddha to lead him on, to ask whether he has spoken in the right way. He has just proven that, basically he has proven that Pokarasati's speech was thoughtless. He has made a very clear claim that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so then he goes through these things. And so the first one here is, does it believe with the consensus of opinion? Now I must admit, I'm a little bit unsure about that one, because sometimes the consensus of opinion is a dangerous one. Sometimes the consensus of opinion can be right, but when it comes to profound things like profound insight, then often the consensus of opinion is wrong. So I think the Buddha is using this in a kind of temporary way. Okay, this initially we go with the consensus of opinion, but there comes a point when you have to leave the consensus of opinion behind. And sometimes the consensus may turn out to be wrong. But it is a very useful principle nevertheless. In days, very often people in the world today, they are too full of themselves. People believe too much their own opinions and views. They don't accept the ideas of experts. There is too much hubris often. You see this, I don't know so much, but you hear this about people on social media, people who kind of are, the masters of the universe, and they think they understand, but actually very often they don't. And sometimes we listen to the consensus of opinions of experts. Whatever that might be, and we don't believe in too many of these crazy theories that you see on the internet all the time, all these conspiracy theories and all the junk that people come up with. And this often comes through hubris, through actually thinking too highly of yourself. So there is a place for the consensus of opinion, but then there's also a place, because we are dealing with profound things, where we go beyond the consensus of opinion. So this is a little bit of a gray area. But so the first one is a little bit ambivalent, but the next ones we can certainly agree that you should think, you should be thoughtful. You should think carefully here. You shouldn't answer too quickly. That makes sense. You should reflect properly on what is going on rather than being unreflective. So these are obviously very, very important things. Moreover, when we speak, we should be very careful that we don't say things that are dangerous or worthless or heading in the wrong direction, but something that is beneficial for people. So when a famous Brahmin like Pokarasati, he says that these Brahmins and ascetics don't understand, then that is a dangerous thing to say, because maybe they do understand. And the Buddha has just made the claim, well, actually, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So these are kind of nice, these are not super profound, but they give us an idea of how we should deal with the world, Be thoughtful, be reflective, be beneficial. And this is a good kind of starting point also when we deal with the Dhamma and we deal with the people around us. So I have lost track of everything. So let's have a break, 5-minute break, and then we can carry on with the Q&A.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
I often have this dilemma on this concept of truth, because everyone has their opinion on what is true, what is not true, and each of them claim that their truth is better than each other. So what is the right kind of view or attitude that I should have when it comes to encountering with different opinions of what is true and what is not true, the truth?
All right. Okay, so the truth, first of all, is very often, when it comes to worldly things, very often there isn't one exact truth. Very often there's just different viewpoints. And this is one of the things about, that famous simile of the blind men and the elephant. You know that simile? Yeah? It's a very famous simile in the Sutta, and I think that's kind of how often what the world is like. You get these blind men, and they kind of touch the elephant, and one says, "Oh, this is a post," or the one says, "This is a fan," and kind of a water hose or whatever. Yeah, and so it depends on which part you feel. Yeah, if you're a blind person, you only feel one part, and the world is often like that. Everyone kind of sees a different part of the world, and very often we need to put the opinions together to get the full picture. So in many things in the world, there isn't like a truth thing. There are just different angles on things. So that's kind of the first point, the first point to remember. The second point that I think to remember is that when we are dealing in the world, I think, there's a lot of things there, but one of them is, for example, not to dismiss experts. The idea of dismissing experts and thinking that we know better is just a stupid thing to do, because these experts have been looking into things, they have PhDs, they've been doing things for a long time. There's a reason why we have experts, because they have studied things very carefully, and we should believe that. We shouldn't be so full of ourselves that we think we know better. This is another important point. There's another one is, where do you get your information from? Very important to get information from good sources. One of the very important things for the upcoming generation of people who are not, who are much more online. I grew up at a time when we still had newspapers. We reading there was nothing online at all. They just got a big broadsheet paper and you read it all. But these days, if you get your news from Facebook or TikTok or something like that, which many people do, it's just very unreliable. You have no idea what you're reading. So make sure that you have good sources of information, and you come closer to truth. So these are kind of some ways of kind of finding truth in the world more generally. When it comes to the spiritual path, however, truth on the spiritual path, well then the answer is that the way to find truth is basically you should come back to the word of the Buddha, right? The word of the Buddha is going to be the guide for what the truth is. So if there is a disagreement among people, then the answer should always be sought in the suttas. So whoever can make the better argument from the suttas, well, that is the argument we should follow. The word of the Buddha is always the final analysis in terms of what is true. On top of that comes people who are well practiced, people who you think may be the Aryas. One of the reasons why the idea of Aryas, of noble ones, is so important is because we know that the Aryas will have the correct interpretation of the suttas. That's what it means to be an Arya. It means that you have seen what the Buddha saw, and so your interpretation will be correct. At least it will be correct in terms of all the substantial points. What is the nature of Nibbana? What are the jhanas? What is the path of purification? All of these kind of things, all the substantial points will have to be correct. And so this is how you kind of gradually find the truth. And then you practice a little bit yourself. You see what works for yourself in your own life. And then you get more inspired by the Buddha. You take the suttas even more seriously. Then you have a few teachers who you feel teach in line with the Dhamma. Maybe they also have good qualities and good character traits which make them more trustworthy in your view. And so in this way you gradually build up a sense of what is true in the spiritual realm, and then you find your way through this. But I know what you mean. It can be very hard. It can be very difficult because there are so many opposite opinions and sometimes very respected people can disagree. What do you do then? And this is where you have to be very skillful and very kind of, to find your way through this. So anyway, thank you for that question. It's a very good question. Okay, anyone else wants to ask a good question? Yeah, over here.
Hi, Ajahn. Just wonder whether you could explain the word in Pali. The translation here is. Sorry, I
Yeah, take your time. It's okay. Yeah.
On the five qualities.
The five qualities. So
yes,
it was.
The first one was.
The fifth one was generosity.
No. The first one was
recital. The first one was satcha, truth.
Yes. The second one was what page is that?
Third was celibacy. Third one was celibacy. Fervor. Fervor was the second one.
Okay.
Tapas.
I'm sorry, I wrote it down, but I do not know where I put it. I remember when I was looking at the Pali version is Ajatena.
That's recital.
Yes.
Yeah, that's recital. I think you're looking for. Yeah.
Oh yes, but when I click the word, the explanation is something else, so I'm a bit confused.
Okay, so if I bring up the Pali, it will come. The Pali will go on the screen. Let's. I'm not sure what should I do now. That's always the question. Let's have a quick look. So here we have the Pali. Let me just have a quick look at the Pali here. We have the five qualities. Five. Sorry, up. Here we are. Ajahn is the Pali word. So that's the word. So then we can just go to the dictionary. That's usually the first stop. So we have a number of dictionaries that are possible. Where is the dictionary I'm looking for? It is not there. Let's see if I can get the right dictionary. There are many dictionaries. You have to know which one to use. So here we have. This is the kind of the standard dictionary these days. The green one, Margaret Cohn's dictionary. Go away. Oh. Okay, so Ajahn. Yeah. So it's a slightly unusual form. So I'm not sure exactly myself what it refers to. So let's have a quick look. Okay, so here we are, Ajahn, learning, study, recitation. It's what it has here. So it seems to only occur this place in the suttas actually, otherwise it's a commentarial term, so that's why it is quite unusual. Yeah. So you can see here, this is the dictionary definition, Ajahn, learning, study, especially of the Vedas, and then recitation. Especially the Vedas. That makes sense because he is a Brahmin student, so he would study the Vedas. So this is the learning and recitation of the Vedas, Ajahn. This is why it's unusual.
The Sutta Central, they split into Ajay and then Na.
That's wrong. Yeah, forget Sutta Central's got it wrong. Yeah, so again we had to write to Bhante Sujato. It's not Ajahn, Na. It's one word, Ajahn. Yeah.
Yeah. Split into two words already.
Yeah. Sutta Central has given you the wrong definition. That's the problem. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. So you can't always trust. Even Sutta Central can't always trust it. That's what that means. So we have to.
Oh, okay. And also the first question about if you have few duties.
Yes.
You are better. No.
Yeah.
You have more duties, you are wiser or something like that?
No. The idea is that it's not about whether you have many or few duties. It's about whether they are successful or not, those duties. So it's about how you live your life. Yeah. Do you live your life in a good way? Then it doesn't matter so much if you have many or few duties. It is how you do it that matters, not what you do.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Please.
Good morning, Bante.
Yeah, good morning.
Just now you were saying that in order for us to be more affirmative, we make sure that we have a reliable source of information, especially from people who are well practiced. But how do we identify or distinguish people who are well practiced? Because there are people now who wear false masks, facades, and sometimes we cannot tell whether they are real, they are good, and all these things until we have followed them for quite a long time, and then we realize we have been cheated.
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things that you can do. The first one, and this is one of the reasons why I like to work from the suttas, because what they teach should be in accordance with the suttas. This is very important. And so you get an idea. When I teach from the suttas, well, you can say, I tell you what the suttas say, and then you can make up your own mind whether I'm giving you a proper teaching or not. And sometimes maybe you think I'm dodgy, and if I'm dodgy, well, then you should reject it. Other times I may be saying something useful. So then you have at least that possibility of checking what I'm saying. And the same thing you should do with other people as well. It should be in accordance with the suttas. Otherwise it's problematic. That's number one. Number two is that you look at their conduct. You look at people, you see what they are. Sometimes on the surface, maybe they can look the part for a while, but there comes a point when they maybe don't anymore. It kind of falls apart. And so you watch carefully, what kind of people are they? Do they have the qualities of someone who is worthy to be followed? Are they worthy to be followed or not? That is a question that you have to ask yourself. And this is always in the suttas. You watch, do they have defilements? Are they greedy? Do they get angry? Are they deluded? If not, well, then you can kind of have some confidence in them. Are they tainted by fame and praise and this kind of thing? If they're tainted by that, it's bad. This is in the Vimamsaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 47. Read that one. It gives you a good idea of how to reflect about people. And this is really all we can do. And then you have to be don't be afraid of making a little bit of judgment. It is important to sometimes we need to make a little bit of judgment. If you see anger, then that's probably what you see. It means you should be a bit more careful. Don't be absolutely sure, but at least you have good grounds for being a bit skeptical. If you see other bad qualities, okay, be a bit skeptical. And the one of the worst things for me is when I hear that, don't say anything bad about this monk because then arahant, But to you, they look angry, So what's going on? Should you then listen to what everyone says and think they're arahant regardless, or should you trust your own judgment? I would recommend you to trust your own judgment. Listen a little bit to others, but also trust your own judgment, because in the end, that's all we have is our own judgment. So something like that, and then gradually you kind of find your way through the jungle of teachers and scriptures and all this kind of thing and moving towards truth. It's a gradual process. It doesn't happen super fast, Okay, we can take one more question, I think. So actually, what time is it now? Is it 10 or 11? Okay, let's take one more question.
Bante, the Buddha says we must try to get at least 2 Kalyanamitta. Kalyanamitta?
Yes, yeah.
One is the Buddha himself.
He is Kalyanamitta number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one can be anyone, but how do we know?
How you know who is the Kalyanamitta?
Yeah.
See what effect they have on you.
Sorry?
See what effect they have on you.
Okay.
What is their effect? If it has a good effect on you, the person, if they make you become a better person, then it's a Kalyanamitta. If they make you become a worse person, it's a Papa Mitta. The evil friend, the bad friend.
Papa is
poor, right?
Bad, yeah.
Poor metta.
Poor friend, yeah. Poor friend, bad friend, papamitta. Yeah, the opposite of kalyana mitta is papamitta.
Okay.
So see what effect they have on you. Everything is measured in the end by the effect they have on you. If they make you a better person, more kind, more caring, less defilements, then it's a good friend.
Okay.